everyone to the COVID Town Hall. I believe we have Marco on. Yep, I see you. Marco, I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Thanks, Sherry. Can everybody hear me okay? So I assume other folks hopefully will be joining us as we get the meeting on its way. Good afternoon and almost noon, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good day, and I appreciate you all for joining. I'm Mark Giordano, your CEO. Did you all notice over the weekend where you're looking up? The light got a little brighter over the weekend, right? Johnson & Johnson single shot vaccine is now approved for FDA emergency use, which is awesome news. And while it has a lower efficacy rate as compared to Pfizer and Moderna, it is 85% effective against severe disease and has been tested to be 100% effective at preventing death. It's also been tested against the more recent variants of COVID, the UK variant and the South Africa variant as well. So I'm going to leave all those additional specifics to those folks who are more knowledgeable, but I thought it was important to shine some light on having a third single dose vaccine in play. Definitely a reason to have hope and acknowledgement that normalcy, it is in our future. We just need to continue to be patient and vigilant all along the way. So a reminder as we get our time started today that while administered vaccine doses are on the rise and cases have declined and are at a moment leveling out, we must continue to practice our protocols, including our 4 W's. And I know many of you know these by heart at this moment. Washing your hands, wearing a mask, watching your distance, and waiting on gatherings, even if you receive the vaccine. So it's so important that we continue those protocols as we're also, as we see the vaccines being administered throughout the country increase as each day goes by. Important because we remain on the front lines, right? Our staff remain on the front lines of this pandemic. Our heroes continue to support the people we serve and each other each day. I'm grateful, continue to be grateful for all that our staff continue to do to provide a supportive, safe, and healthy environment for the folks that we serve as well as each other. I want to give a shout out to our staff at Family Practice and Counseling Network. You guys might have seen and heard, as we've shared in previous meetings, they have been one of few FQHCs that have been selected amongst national providers to administer the vaccine. And through this weekend, they have administered over 1,800 doses of the vaccine to the Philadelphia community. So absolutely a round of applause to our staff at FPCN. Over the weekend, with just 3 days notice, our staff there stood up a vaccination site at a local church and administered 400 doses of vaccine in 1 day. So pretty incredible stuff going on here in Philadelphia as it relates to administering the vaccine. Not an opportunity that we have in any of our other programs. And I'm proud that we are, that FPCN is able to, and that we are able to do that here in Philadelphia and contribute in that way in regards to the response to the pandemic. So thank you to our team at FPCN for the light that you are providing for the people here in the Philadelphia community. So as I transition the mic back to Sherry, I ask you all to continue to have hope. Let's all keep our eyes on the vaccine. The vaccine committee is here today and they'll be sharing more insight as part of today's conversation. As I shared with you all last week, as we continue down this path together, remember to pause and take time to look up, look out, and look forward. So with that, I will pass the mic back to Sherry. And again, thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Marco. And Hannah, if you could put up the agenda one more time. We've had lots of people join us. Great, thank you. So we actually have a pretty short agenda today. Our usual housekeeping and opening remarks. Brian is going to do the COVID-19 update. And today we have Michelle Rector for our story from the field. So we're going to hear about Fernwood. And then the vaccine committee will provide an update, leaving us with lots of time for Q&A. And then, of course, some closing remarks. So just to remind you, there are lots of ways to submit your questions. You have your voice, the COVID-19 inbox, of course, the Zoom chat, and then you can always use the raise hand function. Just remember that if it's a confidential question, that your voice is probably the best way to go about submitting that, as well as the COVID-19 inbox. All right, so Brian, let me pass it to you to take us through the numbers.
All right, thank you, Sherry. Good afternoon, everybody. Currently, we've received 2,452 reports since March. Of those reports that we've received, 684 were confirmed cases of COVID, 1,012 were for negative cases of COVID, 100 suspected cases, and 655 possible exposures. So I'm going to come back to that number in just a minute. However, I'm going to share my graph right now that we've been looking at in these meetings. And what you're seeing, can everyone see the graph?
Yes.
Great. So I have a couple windows open here. So what you're seeing is a continued downward trend that we've been seeing since January, which is great. You know, we saw that peak as it started in the fall. And then after the new year just really started declining pretty rapidly, which is great. You know, we've seen that go down, which is really following that national trend. I know Marco already alluded to it. We've seen that number coming down nationally. Over the past 2 weeks, the number has come down nationally about 26% from that average 2 weeks ago. But as Marco even said in his opening, you know, after that rapid decrease, there's been a bit of a leveling off in those cases as well. So we're kind of seeing that plateau again. So, you know, it really does, you know, still provides us a lot of hope and optimism, but we really need to continue to be vigilant as we move forward through the pandemic. You know, we don't want to let this, you know, these great numbers really make us become complacent. So, you know, Mark already went through the 4 W's, so I'm going to let it go with that because I know everybody does know them by heart at this point. So we did mention those suspected and exposure cases. So they're ones that we're still going back and trying to find information on because, you know, our goal is to be very accurate in the data that we're presenting. So we want to make sure that our programs are going back and filling us in on those data points because there are other people that use them as well for different things. So we just want to make sure that we're going back and collecting those. And I'll be back in contact with the EVPs as well to try to help get those. So that is my report today. It is relatively short because those numbers have been coming down quite dramatically over the past few weeks. So Sherry, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Great, thank you. So I want to give a big welcome to Michelle Rector. We really appreciate you being here today. Michelle's from Fernwood, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the program and some of the interesting things that have been going on there. So again, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
You're welcome. I'm a little nervous, but I'm among friends, so I'm okay. So when you asked me, when I inquired about the town hall, I wanted to know what it was, and I told Jim, yeah, okay, I'll share my story. And then I wrote something and it changed, but I like the direction it went in because when this COVID pandemic hit, RHD had its hands full trying to scramble to get everybody safe and to make sure that all the programs were safe and all of the staff as well as participants were safe. And what I liked is the fact that there wasn't a cookie cutter formula, that each program was allowed to design what was needed specific to their program to make sure things happen. And then we were able to go from there. And for a corporation, that's unusual. I've worked for a couple and they all have their set thing and do it this way. So I applaud RHD for allowing each individual program to do what they needed to do for their program. So Fernwood is a 66-bed facility. We have an east and a west side. It's a temporary emergency shelter, typically 180 days, although we've had some long stayers who were there for 2 years. And so when this COVID hit, we had to make sure that everything was social distance and how we were going to do that. We have cubicles and we're a congregate setting, so that put us at risk, very high risk. What we decided to do since the winter initiative was over was to move 33 men from the west side over to the east, which allowed 2 people to be in the cube as opposed to 4. That spread them out, and with the collaboration with OHS, we were able to get bed barriers that go up at the head of the bed so that they could easily be in the same room, actually coughing would be okay because they had the barrier there. And they slept head to foot so that if someone's feet were in one direction, that other person on the other side, their head were there. So we tried to decontaminate as much as we could. The men who were employed, so we had to figure out, is there going to be a curfew? So we did set a curfew higher than what we normally would have, which is 10 o'clock. And we set it for 8 with the rationale that if you worked, then of course you could be out. But if you're going to, unless you were going to the doctor or for a financial reason or to the market, there was no need for you to be out and about because we wanted to maintain as much as we could. So they set an 8 o'clock curfew. There was some grumbling, but because we had things to do inside, they were okay. As long as they wore a mask, they were still able to play cards. We had a pool table, they were able to play ping pong. So they made sure that they still had their activity because they were getting stir crazy. So when we put the provisions in place that they could do still mostly what they were typically doing, you just had to have a mask on. We allowed them to walk the grounds, not so much inside of Riverview campus, but the park, Pennypack Park is right behind us. So we told them don't go in groups of 10, but if you want to take a walk, go ahead and take a walk and get out. Coming through the entrance for Fernwood, there's we call it the boardwalk because there's benches and chairs and everything. So they tend to congregate there. But for the most part, what I did was find as many masks as I could of different variety because of people who have respiratory issues, people who have allergies to certain things in their face, and you have to have this mask on all times. So we have about 6 different type masks that they can wear. We were able to acquire some N95s, which I was grateful for people who had serious respiratory issues. And we gave those to those participants as well as the staff who had those respiratory issues. If I myself had it, and it's hard to be behind a mask all day, breathing your own carbon monoxide in. So we did it as much as we could with that. We also collaborated with vendors. And I use the word collaborate because this was something that we had to do. None of us knew anything about COVID. We knew about it, but we didn't know the severity of it. So we had to collaborate with as many people who had information and then utilize that information to make sure we stayed safe. So we created shifts for the consumers to eat. We had six different sections. So they would give or allotted a half an hour. They would go in the dining hall. Our dining hall is very big. There were a sufficient amount of tables that 2 people could sit at a table, eat their meal, and then we called the next shift. So that's something we've been doing throughout, and they still continue to do that. Purchase Blue Gops, a hand sanitizer. So there's a bottle inside of the kitchen area where you enter. There's one in the activity room. There's one by the computer table. So they have hand sanitizers. And they also have their own personal hand sanitizers. So we were able to get the small ones. So we distribute those from time to time when they run out or refill them. We have installed electric hand dryers in the bathrooms to keep them from using paper towels, throwing them in the trash. So all they have to do is wash their hands and walk up and dry them. So we minimize contact with that, soap dispensers and all of that. That helped a lot, especially in the congregate bathroom. We purchased spray bottles so that the disinfectant is in it. When you get out the shower, spray the shower, or when you get in, spray the shower. So that helped a lot. We found other vendors for PPE, of course, OHS in their warehouse. We were able to get things through research. I'm the coupon queen. So through research online, I found a lot of vendors who offered in bulk, offered because it was a shelter, offered because, just because. So we were able to get hand sanitizer, masks, disinfect that the staff, each shift sprays down the area that they're in when they come in. And that's required of each staff as well as taking their trash out at the end of the shift. So we were able to keep a lot of the numbers down. And the rationale was that sharing that information with other people, you get to look through another lens of another organization or another lens of another company. So you can see just how it fits your purpose. And so we do a lot of collaboration, and that was helpful. So with that, the outcome was we had, out of 23 staff, only 3 tested positive through this whole pandemic for the past year. And out of 66 participants, only 7, well, actually 7 didn't have it, 4 had it, the other 3 were sent to the quarantine site just for safety's sake, to make sure they hadn't contracted anything. So moving forward, what we had, oh, I forgot something. We had the people come out, our health center came out and did testing on site for anybody who wanted to test, staff as well as participants. And then we contracted with Ms. Spector, who's coming out to administer vaccinations sometimes this month for Fernwood and Luzerne for anyone who wants a vaccination. Because it's easier for the mobile team to come out than us trying to transport them and wait in line. They're getting antsy, so they're going to come to us. And that's pretty much it. Did I talk too fast?
No, that was fun. Well, you do talk fast, but that
I
was
was trying to slow myself down.
totally fantastic.
I was
Lots of,
rubber band on my wrist so I can slow myself down.
well, it was great. A lot of great information. And Michelle, we're just going to ask that you stay on so that when we move to the Q&A portion, if there are any questions for you, you're still here.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. That was great. And I'm going to pass it to the vaccine committee, but I'm not sure Sheena, Bernie, or Sandy is picking that one
I'm
up.
here. Hi, Sheena. Here, okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. So we have some updates for you. I'm actually going to attempt to share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see it? This is my first time doing this. So my screen is just sharing. What we created was just kind of a list identifying the state representatives or regional representatives in each area. So if there are people who are unsure of who to specifically go to for information, we just created kind of a directory for people to utilize. So I'll make sure that this is added to the COVID website so it's easily accessible for use. So outside of that, I do have some updates to share. I'm happy to share that as of last week, so it should have increased by now, over 68% of our employees have had access to the vaccine. So that's amazing considering some of the national shortages we've experienced. I'm just gonna give an overview of some of the access points throughout the country we've been able to partner with and use to get the vaccines. So one of the largest ones is through the public health departments, through local and state government efforts, hospital partnerships, nursing groups, pharmacy partnerships, health service groups, funders, and then local health networks. So those are the main access points for our staff and consumers who were able to, for those who are able to receive the vaccine thus far. I just briefly want to just go over some of the barriers that some of our staff and consumers may be experiencing. So the lack of availability of the vaccine is something that many of us early on are experiencing. Thankfully, there is more availability now, so we should see that barrier decreasing in many areas. The lack of mass access. So that's another big one. So basically the lack of being able to schedule for an entire program or entire home at one time. There have been more access for individual scheduling, which leads into the next barrier, having to utilize several different health systems. So depending on the phase and what was available or what was the eligibility for a specific agency who's doing the vaccines, you may be having to register staff or consumers at different places, which is a barrier because that takes a lot of time and effort to do that. Shortages, as we discussed earlier, long lines, limited appointment slots when it is available, delays in the vaccine. We experienced over the last couple of weeks delays due to the weather in some areas, um, and also not yet being available yet. So depending on where you're located, your phase or eligibility may not have come up yet. So those are the main barriers that we're finding within our staff and consumers. So in the,
If you don't mind, Sheena, can I jump in for a second?
yes,
Since you're on the subject. The thing with vaccinating entire programs and entire staff, we wanted to sort of spread it out a little bit, just in case there were reactions to the shots. We wouldn't want a whole program to be down, and also staffs. So we try to sprinkle it, if you will. And, that's sort of the reason. I mean, you can count it as a barrier too, but it just makes more sense for us to think about not doing an entire staff. And maybe it also makes sense to try to do it on a Thursday or Friday. So
yes.
I don't think we had the opportunity to do that here in Philadelphia. I think our day was Wednesday or something like that. Am I correct, Sheena?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, what Sandy said is correct. It's always important to try to stagger staff and consumers when possible, due to the unknown reactions that someone may have to the vaccine, the side effects they may have to the vaccine. So when possible, as much as possible, stagger those appointment times. And also have on standby on-call staff, or if you use agency staff, just in case you do have some call outs or some shortages with staff due to the vaccine or just any other causes right now. So just want to highlight some of our states right now who have been moving with the vaccine and, um, able to have access to staff and consumers. So in Connecticut was actually, RHD was actually at the top of the list for the partnership that Connecticut had. So they were one of our first states, regions, areas that be able to get staff access to the vaccine. Delaware currently is receiving vaccines. The majority are coming from the state. There have been some shortages with the state of Delaware, some logistical issues, but I believe that most of our staff who are eligible have started to receive the second dose from the vaccine. Massachusetts. So Susan Burnham was really killing it in Massachusetts. They got one of the first partnerships with RHD through the federal pharmacy partnership. So they were able to partner with, I don't know if Susan's on CVS, I believe, and set up clinics throughout several houses. So they've just done an amazing job with that in Massachusetts. Let's see what else we could do. And I think we can just leave it there. A lot of our states and regions have had much success. I just wanted to highlight some of our states and regions right now, in today's meeting. So Sherry, I will turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Sheena. It's always good information. And if you could just stop sharing your screen. There we go. All right, so we are going to open it up for Q&A. And I'm actually going to start with Sarah because I think she has gotten some questions.
So I will say that they're both about COVID-19 vaccination protocols. So the first question is, if clients have gotten their second vaccine, when will they be permitted to go back into the community that has been open? My concern is that the longer they wait, the more idle time they have for negative things because they might be bored.
Hey, this is Brandon, everybody. I think, as far as we're concerned, and I'll let others speak to it if they like as well, but we're still practicing our safety procedures. So I know it's kind of like beating a dead horse that we're saying the same thing here, but we probably are going to be under these circumstances for several more months. I'm hoping it's just months and not longer than that. But the reality is it's still a threat to our people in the community. There's still a ton of folks out there who have not received the vaccine for one reason or another. And even when they do, you know, it's still a dangerous pandemic situation. So we need to take precautions, and we will continue to do so. I would encourage you to brainstorm with the leadership if you're having trouble coming up with ways to continue to help your folks in-house. Reach out to brainstorm with your peers, with your supervisors. We'll help you come up with something. I know it's easier said than done. I realize it's difficult to keep people happy, keep people moving, and keep people engaged inside their house or in their own yards. Very difficult, easier said than done. And we appreciate the hard work that you guys have already done thus far. But reach out for help. Look, to DSIC as well. They're producing some great things to help us work through the weeks with our folks in house, and we appreciate them so much. So again, we have to work together as a team to maximize the benefits for our folks while keeping them safe. And we appreciate your efforts thus far.
The one thing that I would add to that too is that in the warmer weather, there were more options for us, to be safe. And as the weather starts to get warmer again, we will be working continually with programs on what are safe options when. So even though right now, as Brandon said, it's, we are sticking to our active protocols, the hope is over time that, together we're working on what is available that can keep everybody safe.
I would just add 2 plugs to that, Linda and Brandon. One would be Leah continues to send out activities that are really creative that folks can do from their home remotely, and they're varied. It's not the same thing every week, so that's a good thing. And the second thing is if your folks have to get out in the public for a particular reason, again, I would refer you to your PCP, to your consumer or participants PCP, to get recommendations from them as to how they can most safely encounter the community.
Sarah, I think you have another question.
I do. It's very similar, but I still feel like it's important to ask. And I'm just going to paraphrase, but what this person was saying was that 80% of their program staff have been vaccinated, but there are still only 3 staff who are allowed in the office. They're stating that it's difficult to continue working remotely, and they're wondering when we may be adjusting those protocols so that more staff can be present in the office, staff who are vaccinated fully. So similar, but not, if somebody wants to speak to that.
Yeah, I might start, and then if others want to jump in too. But I would say it's a similar answer, but I would also, focus on the staffing side of it, obviously, with our own folks, just like our clients. We also want to protect our team members. So we are sticking to our protocols at this point. We are reviewing those, I would say, almost weekly in our reviews and conversations with each other. If we have the opportunity to reopen offices, we want to do that in cases as well, but it will look a bit different. We have seen some efficiencies and things that are working better. So we're looking at all avenues. That doesn't mean that it'll be virtual for everyone all the time, hear me, but we are also listening to folks who say, I need to get back into an office, and many of us need that as well. So we're kind of trying to take all sides of that argument into the perspective as we consider everyone's work habits and work needs, with safety as a priority. So just remember that safety is our number 1 priority right now, and it has to be that way for both our clients and our team members.
The only other thing I would add to that is that it's really been in the last couple of weeks that we've seen the momentum of the availability of vaccines opening up. So there's a lot of people who maybe have a spot they're registered, or maybe had their first one, maybe half the staff has it. So it is still pretty new around really recognizing who has been vaccinated and what that may do for our change in policies. So it's something that we are thinking of, but not ready to make any move at this time right now.
thing that we did was, because we had to be to work, we could not take off. No, I think I'm about the only one in the building that could work from home. So since all the staff were present, we, especially with the DSPs, we moved them from congregating like around the water cooler. So we moved them to, everyone was assigned a specific area where they worked that day, and it rotated so that they could be in the office. They had to monitor the clients. We couldn't get rid of the clients, so we had to make sure that there was sufficient staff. So what we did was just place them in different areas when they arrived. You have the lunchroom today, you have walking the floor and monitoring the hall, you have the front desk, your staff on duty, so you answer the phone, you log in a book, and that distance kept them apart. The only ones we couldn't separate were the case managers, but we put the air purifier in their office, and they were innovative and decided to use the staff lounge to meet with a participant because there was a table and they could be a distant and still see the participant and deliver the service. So we had to get real creative, but if you were able to move around in the building, if it's big enough, you can assign people to different areas and then you minimize the contact.
Great, thank you, everyone. So we don't have any more questions at this time, but Sheena, I do need to ask, can you clarify which Gina, we saw something in the chat for Iowa, that it's a different Gina.
Yeah, I will update it. It should be Jan for Iowa and Louisiana.
Okay.
So I will make that correction.
Okay.
Sorry, Gina. I know you wanted everyone from Iowa emailing you.
Great. Sorry to put you on the spot, Sheena, there, but we were worried somebody was maybe writing it down, and yeah, so thank you for clarifying.
I do
Sorry,
have,
I have
I
a
do
question.
have a comment.
Oh.
Go ahead,
Sandy.
Vern.
All right, so Michelle, I thought your presentation was excellent. The concept of trying to keep 66 participants and staff safe and separate, it gives me a headache just trying to think about it. So kudos to all the creativity that you guys have done. You said curfew used to be 10 o'clock and you switched it to 8 o'clock. I have two questions. One, what were you trying to accomplish by changing the curfew to 2 hours earlier? And how did you convince a group that I'm bet is not an easily convinced group to change?
Well, to begin with, what we said, if you have an appointment, then it's valid that you're out. There's, I mean, you have to be at work. So that was valid, and we didn't mess with their curfew because they had to work. With anyone else, the other restrictions per the city were your doctor, financial issues like going to the bank or going to the market. Well, we feed you. So if you wanted to go out to store, that's fine. But other than that, there was really, we figured between the time you got up at 7, because you had to be back by 8. Anything you needed to do, go see your family, go see your kids or whatever, you can do it by 8 o'clock because you had all day. So we made that restriction. They had a little ruffle feathers, but they acclimated well. And then when the numbers went down in the city and we came out of red, we moved it back to 10. And like I said, thus far, nothing has occurred. It was ironic that the 3 people who tested positive, they didn't get it from the shelter. They got it from being out.
Right.
And we can't control where they go when they're out. So
Right.
what we have to do is, what we could. So
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate it.
I want to say, Bernie, get out of my head, number one. Michelle, you
Okay.
have done, I'm telling you guys in these shelters, you guys have done phenomenal work. I got to tell you, because the only thing I was thinking about when COVID hit was like, because I know what Fernwood looks like. And I'm like, oh my God, because the beds are so close. I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder what they're going to do in the TV room where all the Barkle loungers are. And I gotta just compliment you and your team, because it could be worse, but it's not.
Mhm.
So kudos to you and your team. Bernie's always in my head like that, but excuse Bernie.
CVP's got to stick together, Stan.
So what
But
we did, we moved all those chairs.
you did. I figured you would. Yeah, I figured you would.
Feet space between, so it doesn't even hold as many. And then,
Yeah.
like I said, they have the game room. They
Yeah.
have a kitchen area. So there was
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And with the staff assigned to that area, they can monitor, make sure, move back, move over,
Yeah.
move past up. So Yeah.
Yeah, I know what the setup is over there, and just good for you, Michelle. Just keep doing that good work.
Well, the team, I have a good team. I have a good team.
You and the team, yeah.
And they have a lot of good ideas, and
I know your team as well.
If they work, great. If they don't, we'll try something else.
Yep. Good for you, Michelle. Keep doing the good work you're doing.
We will.
Thank you. It's always great to get the uplift from the program, so I appreciate that. So we don't have any more questions at this time. Okay, and so Marco, I am going to pass it to you for closing remarks.
Thanks, Sherry. And I just want to reiterate all that's been said. Michelle, thank you so much for what you and the team are doing at Fernwood. The creativity is incredible, so appreciate it. And thank you to Brian and Sheena for your sharing today as well. Lots of great information, so I appreciate all that's been shared today. I appreciate folks joining. So before we step off, I do have some pretty great news to share with you all. You might have heard, you might not have heard, but I figured this is a great setting to share it with you all if you haven't heard. So I was super excited last week to learn that RHD was selected as one of the top 500 best employers in mid-sized companies nationally. Definitely deserves a round of applause. So of nationally across the country, top 500 mid-sized employers, RHD is on that list. Pretty incredible, pretty incredible. We are number 268 of 500. So right in the middle of the best, which is not a bad place to be at all. So a little bit of information so you understand what this survey and this acknowledgement or recognition, how it came about. So it was a survey done by Forbes. So I'm going to read a little bit in terms of the nature of the survey so you understand how incredible this is. Forbes partnered with a market research company, Statista, to pinpoint companies liked best by employees in their annual ranking of America's best employers. The ranking divided employers into two groups, one for large companies, 500 employees and higher and greater, or 5,000 employees and greater, and another for mid-sized companies, which was 1,000 employees to 5,000. So we're sitting in that mid-sized company. I think we're a pretty big fish in that mid-sized company pool of employers. To determine the list, Statista surveyed 50,000 Americans working for businesses that had at least 1,000 employees. All of the surveys were anonymous, allowing participants to openly share their opinions. The respondents were asked the following: to rate on a scale of 0 to 10 how likely they'd be to recommend their employer to others, and also nominate organizations other than their own, as well as identify organizations they would not recommend to others. And we're number 268 on the mid-sized company list. Pretty incredible, pretty incredible. As I know every member of the executive team will join me in this thought that this is recognition of the hard work that each and every employee of RHD does, supporting the people we serve each day and supporting each other. It is truly the result of the intentional investment that we're making to maintain our culture. It's hard work, and we're doing it each and every day, and some days we do it better than others, but it's that intentional investment to maintain our culture, while also knowing that we need to adjust and adapt with the changing environment. And it's also the result of us living our values each day and learning from our experiences along the way as well. So it's all those things combined that makes us one of the best. So kudos to everyone on this call. Kudos to the other 4,000 employees that are not on this call today, 4,000 plus or minus a few hundred that are not on this call today. And thank you for all that you guys do each and every day to make RHD one of the best employers. So with that, I don't know how to end a call in any of a better of a positive way. Thank you. And have a wonderful day, guys.